pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll be in on his, or why don't you keep it, I'll just look at Renee. It's okay, it's really simple.
Okay.
We have minutes, and I know you all have spent hours poring over them. They basically include everything we were gonna be doing today, but if anybody would like to take a minute to read them, I have a copy. If everybody's read them and they feel comfortable making a motion.
I move that we adopt accept the minutes of the meeting as written.
Second.
All in favor?
I favor.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, so let's talk about what's going to be happening tonight. We have posters all over town, courtesy of Don. He's been in every important place within our.
Ace Hardware, library, both town halls.
We don't have time to hear them all, Don. I
Okay.
mean, you were working all over
Okay.
town, talking to people, really. But I put an article in the Shorelines that specifically said to April 12th, and the headline was April 13th. So those poor people that decide to come tomorrow night will be all alone. But I think we got out at least enough information that those people that are interested will be here. I think it's really important that the attorney made the decision to come, because we'll have a chance to talk with them.
Sure.
So that's basically what we've been doing to get people here. But let's talk about when people are here. John has taken the opportunity to show what we're calling backstage. Do you want to make a couple comments on that, plus the other video that we're going to be showing is kind of the intro?
Yeah, sure. So this is just a looping slideshow of what the kids do at school and showing them at work with, I think, the superintendent's in it. And
give a little intro if people come about what.
I don't think, no, because it says it at the beginning,
Okay.
student opportunities, so that can just keep playing. I also brought, in case we needed, that video I made during the winter that showed, that we showed at the last meeting we had, last open meeting. So I have that in case you want to show that as well.
We'll just use it until we feel like it's time to really get going on
Yeah.
the meeting.
And you know what? I didn't test audio on this, so let's stick with this. Okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it should be fine. I think, the main thing is that there's a visual that you can point to, and we can
Yep.
say, this is where the funding goes.
Yep. Yep, and I can speak on it too,
Where
if
a
that
portion
comes
of
up.
the funding goes.
Yep.
And
I
we
think
can
it's important that people see this, because that's not usually what they think about. They think about the program that they saw last night or whatever, so.
Yep.
Do that.
Okay.
Okay, so that will be a nice pull it together kind of beginning. And then I will just say hello, welcome, all of that wonderful stuff. There he is recording, so we will be here to see what we're doing. And Sharon's not here, so I need somebody to take a few notes. She said she could pull together from the recording. Bob, can you make just a sort of a few notes, and I'll
I will.
help you before the night's over?
Yep.
And she'll turn it into real stuff once she gets a chance to look at the video. Then we basically need to, I have a sign-up sheet in the back, so one or all of us needs to encourage people who do come to sign in. I have the ones we have from January ago, but it really will be important. When Attorney Hewitt comes, Renee, do you think he should be talking to the crowd or just listening?
I think it'd be good to have him kind of talk about the process a little bit, because he's had experience with public hearings. Obviously, he's had experience with the negotiations, and he can kind of maybe give the group a timetable of how things normally occur with this. And also, it'd be good because he'll provide some parameters for people to speak. And I think that's probably the most important one, is inform.
I have
be
some
here.
sheets in the back, basically a half piece of paper, for people to write down their comments. When we did this originally, before we really got started, we used that as a way to know what somebody was going to talk about. So I will ask that if they want to talk, if they would just write their name and what they want to speak on. We can use the lectern. I think that should be at the end, though. I think that before that, Bob, I'd like you to talk about the purpose section of the report, of the draft statement. And that was so key to our thinking of how we see this as a critical service. And you can go on for however your heart desires about that. With an audience of 2, it's a little hard, but maybe with an audience of 6 or 7, we can really talk about that. I think that's the core of our success with this. And then Renee, will you take over with the specifics? And I don't know if we need to go through everything we asked for, but at least give people an overview that this is a request for money and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's basically everything until we ask. Now, Don has brought to our meetings his commitment to understanding how we can solve some of the technical problems. We can't solve a lot of
Right.
the issues, and what I've asked him is, rather than taking everybody's time to address that, we'll ask if there are people who would like to talk with Don about how to improve
For service, yeah, know who to
So
contact.
make a small group, because it might be one, it might be everyone, but, some people aren't going to be interested. Now, Steve, maybe you could talk a little bit about the history of this. I think every time people talk to me about the issue, they think this is something that can be changed all the time. They really don't understand that the select board has made a serious 10-year commitment every time, twice now, and they're looking to do it a 3rd time. Can you kind of help to clarify that?
Sure. If the crowd stays calm, sure.
Well, we are hopeful right now.
Yeah.
But I think if we know what we're gonna do,
Yeah.
we still don't have to go much beyond 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
If we get 25 people, we'll all be overwhelmed and,
Yeah, I think we got like a dozen.
Steve, is this our 3rd or 4th contract coming up?
Yeah, and I think the most we ever got was like a dozen, and you need to stress that this is the cable part, because, the internet part, because that's what half the people were here for most of the time.
Right.
Right.
And, that isn't what we're here for. It isn't part of the negotiations, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the attorney will be good about it.
Yeah, he might touch base on it too, but then, like I say, half of them, Don, you probably remember, half of them were here to complain about their internet service, so.
well, I looked at the contract and I mentioned to David Cole, who's very involved with this internet
Right.
municipal light, that there was a section that talked about you can't make changes unless they're, we have a contract and we can't bring somebody in who's gonna do everything different and so on. And we talked to the attorney and he said, that's talking about other stuff, that's not talking about your contract. But I think it made David aware that maybe we have to understand the alignment of what's going on now and in the future. And he may be here and want to talk about that. But Renee's on that committee and I think you can guide that conversation also.
Maybe Spectrum will look at our video, but that's more effective, obviously, as a representative here.
Steve.
Cable company.
Do you know, like with the state telecommunications or maybe the FCC, if there's any time frame that after the contract expires that they have to settle before say it goes to arbitration or something?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's something we could ask you. He could clarify.
Something to look into, if there's, a time frame, say 90 days or something after the contract expires, if they're not negotiating in good faith, just,
I don't think, even though Masters is really tight, that they could do that with a private company. I think what all the legislation right now is trying to do is to deal with people of low income,
Yeah.
seniors. And Jim Coyne was actually telling me that the veterans agent in town gave him a lot of clues about ways that a veteran can reduce costs for cable
that's
and
good.
so on. So, that's maybe an issue that we want to take on at some meeting to really publicize those avenues. But they're not high limits, we're talking pretty low.
Well, it was part of our wish list of low income. I mean, I don't remember if we specified veterans, but, obviously it would be a good ad for them, but it's a long shot.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But right now, our main focus is getting a new contract signed.
Yep.
And I don't think we wanna busy ourselves with lots of other stuff. The committee can tell me that, but that's what, so that's sort of the dress rehearsal for what we're doing. And, I guess what I wanted to do is make sure we had enough time to think if we need to do something more or we need to do something less. Because the more streamlined we can make our meeting, the more we can make it happen in an hour. And, I think that's probably a really good amount of time.
No, you do good. You do a good job.
The other thing that we probably want to talk about is whether or not we need to meet in May, because once we finish this and, you know, the dandelions start growing and you have all those things to do in your yard, you may say that that's more important. I don't know. I do not think it makes sense to have a meeting at this point. There's no urgency. But my question would be, and maybe the attorney, we get called back about the negotiations, or does the select get called back?
Well, once everybody's happy with what we're putting forward, then the town administrator generally does, and the chairperson could be
I'm
able
talking about the negotiations, though, you know,
to. Oh,
everybody's happy when you're ready to sign, but what
Okay.
happens in the middle of?
Yeah, I believe the attorney will come back with our asks and, what is attainable and then what's not, and we'll most likely either agree or keep pushing for something additionally, and then we'll get a proposed draft, that we'll present to the select
We
board.
really don't anticipate that happening too much before June, though.
Yeah, we'll have to get a sense from Attorney Ulick. He may have an update tonight for us.
Okay.
And I think, we'll just have to, follow his lead on it in terms of, how quickly they respond. I mean, if they respond like they did to my email requesting that they attend tonight, then we'll be waiting a while.
yeah, they're not
But-
particular.
But,
And you did
at
it
least,
because you're a close friend.
well, at least we
Right.
made the invitation, we did our due diligence, and,
Yeah, no, I feel
It's
very
there.
good about that, and I'm really glad you were willing to do that, because you've worked with him on many other
Yeah.
occasions, so we're really, very lucky, but we'll see what it goes, but I don't intend to have people come back together just to come back together, because that's not the kind of party you can have in the town hall.
No,
annex.
if there's something worthwhile, then just call a
Great,
meeting.
okay, well, I'll agree on that.
Sure.
All right, so, I think,
Oops.
one thing I asked John, and that was just as he walked in the door, is about the budget for next year, because we're gonna go to town meeting and we're gonna see it for the first time. We've asked to see what the request was. Part of that came out of the idea that a couple of years ago, when the fiber optics started, we were at
I
town
don't
meeting
believe
when we
so.
discovered that the allocation for the first go-around with fiber optics was coming out of this fund. And this is a significant resource for the
Right.
town, so
I might be
it
able
should
to-
be used according to the proper ways.
How
But
many?
John is gonna see if he can identify. We did talk earlier in the year about adding staff to you,
Mhm.
and we don't know for sure whether that was included.
It was not included. I saw the final breakdown. I probably could call it up, but it's on all my stuff's on that
Yeah,
computer, so
yeah.
I don't want to have to do that. No, the budget only went up. I really don't know a percentage, but you can tell there wasn't additional for an additional employee on it, so.
Because it's a very different fund than the other sources of revenue for the town. And I think that is one of the issues we should put on the agenda. How do we talk to the town administrator and the selectmen when we really feel there are needs? That, all of that came out of this work for the renewal. We really believe that there should be a little more staff. There's two people that do an awful lot, and Valerie's at home tonight recovering from surgery. So, we're really down to, thankfully Henry is with us. We appreciate all of your hard
Mhm.
effort on our part, but I think it leaves us pretty exposed,
Mhm.
so. we maybe should talk about it at some point soon when you have the numbers, or you could share them by email with everyone before town meeting?
Yeah, definitely. I'll send that tonight or tomorrow.
Super,
I'll share what I have.
okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or reports or concerns?
I can give a quick update on the encoder switchover issue. That's been going on a year now, probably. We got some good news with that. The cable company can see the feed coming from the new building. So now their engineering teams I think they call it flushing things out. I don't know what that means. They're just going through a process. They've been monitoring my feed for probably 10 days now. And once they complete this process, we can schedule the switchover. So,
Explain, because
so-
other people are listening.
Yeah, okay. So we, right now, originate out of the old high school. So this feed from here at the annex, the town hall, it gets sent to the old high school, the server over there, and that's connected to the fiber that gets sent out to the town. So we want everything in a new building, and that's what this process is.
So the service at the old building, yeah?
It's at the old building, yeah. And the encoders, everything Spectrum's at the old building.
That's on 24/7?
Yep. So now we have this new beautiful server room in the new high school. I have my own space there, and that's where the encoders are, and our servers are gonna be physically moved from the old school to here once the switchover happens. And once we buy a new server, we'll just swap it out that way too, whichever comes first.
You anticipate that'll be done this?
No, not at all, because I've waited this long. I mean, I got good news, so I'm excited about it, but I'm not anticipating anything.
It's in about every minute we've had for the last
Yeah.
year and a half.
Yeah, but it's a big step, because that was a big holdup, them not being able to see what we were feeding them, so.
Well, I guess small steps are good.
Yeah, there's one more step going. I haven't heard from them. I touched base with her last week. She said they're still doing their thing, so I guess maybe no news is good news. That she hasn't said it's not working, so try to stay positive on it.
The staffing issue has been on the agenda a number of months, and at this point, you really haven't added more people. Valerie hasn't added more people, is that correct?
That's correct, and Valerie has made an effort. She's gone to a job fair, and she's reached out on a couple of, I forget that college site, this college site where kids can apply, and we're not getting anyone interested.
Well,
So-
we're gonna probably have
Henry's
to-
brother is gonna be eligible next year, so we're gonna have two Gillettes in the
It'll be a
feed
family business pretty
Yep.
soon.
pretty soon, yeah. So,
Well, I think
That's where it stands
I think it is an important subject, because we're
Definitely.
very, very vulnerable. And we have numbers, I think, in the report of how much programming happens, how many organizations are recorded weekly, daily, so I think we have to make sure, really begin.
I know I have, for all the events coming up at the end of the school year, I know I have a lot of volunteers for that, so a lot of students will help me out with the graduations, the
Yeah.
awards night, and that, scholarships, that type of thing.
You've been doing more school recording in the last couple of years than I remember. I mean, games, you're doing multiple sports, you're doing lots of events.
We do now. I've since passed on all the games to Henry, and so it's kind of stayed somewhat consistent of what we did before. We did live basketball games, and that was a huge hit.
Yeah.
Right now, both teams play at the old high school, so I can't stream anything live from there. So,
And an old basketball game isn't as much fun as a new basketball game, live basketball game.
well, people get used to it. They can watch it now on their
Yeah.
big 70-inch screen at home, so they get used to,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, well, it's important to be kept up. Any
Able
other
to do,
questions
say,
for John? or-
baseball game live, or?
We might. The web presenter I have that will send it to go live, it'll be wirelessly, which I'm a
At the
little,
new
at the
school.
new school, which I'm a little hesitant to. I'm not sure how good that's gonna be, but we're gonna try. We're gonna see how that,
With the ranges on the wireless,
yeah, 'cause there's no place on the field where I can just tap into Ethernet.
right?
So, but it can be done wirelessly, so we'll see.
Is it possible to run a cable through there, or just?
The problem is the fields are, you
Where the
gotta,
field is located, yeah.
you gotta cross,
The pavement,
you gotta cross the pavement where people drive through, so
or they could
that's,
just, I mean, the gas company, all those companies, you just dig a hole, you got a machine,
okay.
It's
Yeah,
not
shoot a
job
bullet through
description.
it, yeah. Yeah, that won't happen, but we'll try wirelessly until something
Yeah.
else comes up.
What's the distance that you're talking?
Jeez, from the
If you had
from
to
the
run a
gym,
cable.
it's probably, it's less than 100 yards, maybe 75 yards.
But you're crossing the street.
You're crossing the street, yeah, that's the only way out once you come in the building.
I'll send you a link because they actually have these like cable protectors that are designed for construction sites. They're like big yellow with a channel.
Oh,
underneath,
yep.
and
Yep,
I forget, I think they're called like bumblebees or something like that, so.
yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We'll run it through an old garden hose across the street.
That would
It'll
work,
For a few games.
yeah, yeah.
So if there's no other
So that's-
questions for John, I think we've wrapped it up. We all know what's gonna be ahead of us for the rest of the evening. And, thank you for the April meeting and all the work that's gone to get us to this place, which is our final, proposal. Let's take a break
Recess.
and, a motion to end the meeting, I think, is required. Someone willing to say, make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting, the April meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Why you've chosen to come with us?
Okay. Well, I'm David Cole, and Don will remember, and
Yeah.
you should too. I was once a member of this
Right,
August
way back
body.
when.
And then when I got moved off of the planning board, why I got moved off this committee too, so. And
Of his protege.
But anyway, but now I'm involved with the Internet Advisory Committee, and that is moving along on parallel tracks, and I'm here to support what you're doing, because I think that you need to get the best deal you can, and we want to come along and work beside you and not compete with you, but to do parallel operations that will give people more choices.
Great,
So that's why I'm here.
super, and I think the timing is wonderful. Renee, you've been communicating with our esteemed attorney. Do you want to add anything or just
Yeah, I mean,
welcome?
you know, this committee has worked diligently over the last year to try to finalize a proposal which was presented to the select board. And I think we can say that we've done our due diligence in terms of presenting Attorney Ewig with the ammunition that he needs to get us a renewal, hopefully on time. But that's, that's up to the powers that be. But I appreciate Attorney Ewig, you making the trip down here. I know it was 3 hours of Route 24, and that's not fun for anybody at the best of days, but.
And we did do a little preparation in case everyone in town was wanting to be here tonight, because I heard the refreshments were so good.
Yeah, I heard that
But,
too.
Steve was gonna, as our historic member and select board, was gonna kind of talk about the process, because when I meet people here, there, and whatever, they're always ready to make changes, and clearly the contract deals with changes, but in the context of how the selectmen see this process, that this is the third renewal, you were gonna say a few things to the group. Steve, do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I was just gonna let them know about the history and all that good
Well-
stuff, and piggyback with
Yeah.
what the attorney had to
Okay.
say and whatnot. So I don't know if he wants to summarize or if he need it on here
Well,
now.
why don't you talk first, and then Steve and Bob Daler, who added, I think, the real core of the perspective we have. We can all add something to it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. This process is, the public hearing is more or less the culmination of the ascertainment process, the way I see it. The structure set up by the Federal Cable Act, and it calls for an ascertainment process, which can begin up to 3 years before the license renewal date. That's unnecessary in these days and times. We don't need 3 years to get ready for a renewal. And so the process which you've already undertaken, ascertainment, was a process which is intended to determine what the future community cable-related needs of the community are within reason, and also whether Charter is in compliance with its license. There's 2 things that ascertainment is supposed to do. And you folks have done that. And you've determined that the future community cable-related needs of the community would require increasing the gross annual revenues from 3.5 to 4%, and increasing the capital over a 10-year period from $200,000 to $300,000. So that'll give you an increase not only in the annual income you get from the gross annual revenues for operating funds, but also for capital improvements. The idea of the public hearing is to get public input on that. And as long as the public has been noticed and the hearing has been conducted, that's the only legal requirement we have before signing a license. You have to have 1 public hearing, at least. Some communities have more. Most
We
have
had one
one.
at the beginning of our process, so I'm feeling like we've reached.
Okay. So the ascertainment process, as you know, is to gather information, to deliberate, to check with departments, to determine what the needs of the community will be, and try to make sure that the proposal you prepare addresses those needs. The public hearing is where it's more or less presented to the public, and you get public feedback or public ideas. And then the next step is to present it to the cable company and negotiate it. And I've already sent to John Marr in February a letter which outlines all of the items that you showed me in your ascertainment. And they include 10-year license, 4%, $300,000 capital payable in 3 $100,000 increments in years 1, 3, and 7, 3 HD channels to replace 3 SD PEG channels, continue existing courtesy account cable converters to monitor programming, and relocate 1 courtesy cable account from the old high school to the new high school. Charter does do that. They will continue those courtesy free cable drops and free service to the public buildings and schools. Electronic program guide, senior discount, reopen customer service center on Gifford Road, written commitment to quicker response time to outages, provide written documentation of technical specifications of the cable network. That was sent to Mr. Marr in February. What I'm working on now is a draft license to send, and I'll send a copy of that license to you, and I'll send it to him, and it'll have all these things in it, and then I'll start negotiating with him. And the question for you is, do you want to participate in the negotiations? It could be done at a regularly scheduled cable committee meeting.
I think we had a little bit of that conversation before because we weren't sure with the authority sitting on the select board. Steve, we could talk about that. The
Yeah.
people here have worked thoughtfully on these requests.
Yeah, I'll put it on the agenda for Monday so the selectmen touch base on it. We have 1 new member, just to make sure everybody's on board. I would think they would want us to keep doing it, but if you're up to it. If you don't want to pass it on to the town administrator, you could, but as you know, we're having fun trying to balance the budget right now. But anyways, yeah, if you want to keep doing it, I'm sure the board will vote.
Well, I think it makes sense, logical sense.
Yeah, as long as you still want to do it. I mean, we don't want to push you to do it if you don't have the time, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, committee, if there's any complaints about our lack of time to do this based on all the other things we're doing.
That might connect up to Donald's question. If there's
I think it's really important, if you're willing to have us
Yeah.
stay with it, we're the best.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I just wanted
Right,
some
right now.
clarity from you, Bill, in terms of what that process is. You mean in terms of going back and forth with
Yes.
Charter in terms
Yes.
of the asks
Yes.
that we're asking for? So
Yes, so I would anticipate a first meeting, and I think I mean, I can do it myself, but I think it's a helpful exercise for you folks to see it. And at that first meeting, John will be present either, virtually or in person, And we'll go down this list, and you'll all hear what he has to say.
And where will that meeting be held? Here?
Well, you
Virtually.
probably on a Google or Zoom.
It can
probably
be
through
Zoom,
Google.
it can be Zoom, or it can be an actual meeting.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Most of the ones I've been doing recently are Zoom.
Is there a difference in how people talk and work with each other? Because there is a distance that the virtual meetings create.
There is, and in negotiations, I have not observed any meaningful difference, to tell you the truth. I mean, one person, either me or the chair, will say, okay, John, here's what we want. Let's start with 10-year license. Any problem with that? And he'll say yes or no. If folks have questions, you know, someone can say, John, I want to ask you this question about that, and then we go on. Next thing, John, we want 4%. What do you say? Is Charter going to meet that? They probably will. I think they'll probably go from 3.5 to 4. And we'll just go down the list. When we get down past the money, I think we're going to run into some problems with them. They don't do senior discount, for example, anymore. We will not likely get 3 HD channels. Charter does do HD channels, but you have to pay for them. So I'd like him to explain that to all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And have him tell us why and how much.
Yep.
And what the reason for that is. I mean, it often depends on the technical construction of the cable plant, because different cable companies have different plant construction, different types of hardware. So it may be that, it may be some other reason. But I think it's a helpful exercise for everybody to hear what he says.
See, the problem we have here is also, we're like the outpost. The closest Charter facilities in Dudley, Mass, the Worcester area. Our feed comes from the server in Oxford, Mass. So it's a long distance, it's about an 80-mile run. Maybe with the HD, that's what they're gonna say, well, we can't do it out of the head-end station. It has to be processed out of the server out of Oxford, and you're running down 146 into Mass and all the cable. There might be an issue with them.
We're just gonna be able to hear the response. We can't really refute it or.
No, but you can question it. I mean, we can say, why do you say that, John?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, and having a lot of expertise and experience here at the same table with him, I think is a great benefit and a great advantage.
Yeah, just like it'll say, well, it's a long run, and they got a mismatch of cable in Westport. It's either old or new, and in between, either from a year old to 30 years old. And they have issues with that. Because I was told, we had a meeting, I think Steve, you were there, in the Selectmen. They had Cohen was there from God. He says, oh, well, your bandwidth is not great in Westport. I mean, ours is like 400 to 500 megahertz.
Yeah. And that might
The
prevent
premium
us.
is 700 to 800, and we're not getting that here. And he told me, well, that's tough luck. That was like his attitude almost. We're not gonna upgrade because, and then we can't give you the quality because the cable can't handle it, the frequency. We can mention that. How are they gonna upgrade so we can get the 700 to 800
Well,
megahertz
we can-
signals
we
like
pretty much have
everybody
to
else gets?
Stay with this list. We can't really get too off the line because.
No, that's will they come out with the HD, give them,
So just a question, just off of that. Could we potentially ask for a network upgrade of bandwidth
Yes,
for the plant?
we could. And technically, you're not supposed to condition a renewal on a technical request, all right? But it happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it actually becomes a quality issue, right?
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
some of the
Well,
issues that David is, and some of the people in the community are obviously speaking about are internet speeds, or about, not being able to get an HD channel on there just because of bandwidth, if that's the case. Because, currently, the way the network is set up, they're using one cable into the house that serves both cable TV and internet services.
and telephone.
Depending where you are in the town, you can have either, relatively good, internet service, or you can have horrible internet speeds. So I think that might be something that maybe we just inquire, maybe that actually, see if if that's on the horizon, that they might do an upgrade eventually anyway. But
Another thing we should ask them, I got this about 3 months ago in the mail about upgrading my modem. They do it for free. And I asked one of the technicians, and you know what he told me? Most of the people throw them away as junk mail. Wonder how's the way we can arrange charter to make this. And then I got an email that I haven't had any service for 5 years. And they sent a guy down, spent 3 hours, replaced all the connectors in the house, all the cable, went through my boxes, looked at my modem, said, you need a new one. 2 days later, I get that postcard. And he said, people are getting the mailings, but throwing them away as junk mail. The technician,
It's an
he said,
interesting.
they're offering the service. I mean, this guy spent 3 hours at my house, technician, at no charge,
And
fixing it.
Don was so impressed, he's been telling us
Yeah,
about.
it was like unbelievable. The guy went through the whole thing and checked, whatever. He's got a meter. He said, oh, you got a noise system in here. He first went in, the equipment, the guy, he said, well, I'll go through the whole house.
It's a bonus.
Yeah,
We're
and then,
giving to the
and
company.
he says, people will, they'll make a phone call or an email, and people are just ignoring it. They think it's a spam call, they hang up on it.
Well,
So
they
somehow
send
it can
6
charter
mailers a
do a
week.
way to notify these people, hey, we're for
I get the
real,
phone
we
every
want to
day.
help you.
They would probably appreciate this pat on the back, that they are doing great service without being heard by almost anyone but Don, really. He reads
Yeah,
his-
and
But I
this
think
was, my speed
Yeah, I
was,
think you're right. I think that's,
I had
if
a-
it's something they're
I
doing
was
well, they should be
getting a
doing.
minimum of 100 megahertz. I'm getting
Locally,
360 now with a new modem they gave me.
locally,
Triple the
we
speed
could-
of my internet service.
We could promote that. We
Yeah.
could just list it on the website.
But, you know, they're sending it out, they're doing their part, but people are just ignoring it.
I want to make sure that we're clear, that we have a list that we've submitted and that we could discuss other options, as
Yes,
Renee
oh, yes.
talked about.
We can add to the list, sure. It's our list.
That's why you're here. You
Yeah.
can do the fancy
Yeah.
dancing with this.
Yeah. What is the megahertz, the cable megahertz? Is it 560 megahertz, the cable system?
I believe it's 5.
Don's a technical guy. Is
Yeah.
that what it's up to?
That's, your speeds are running like, they're doing about 400 to 500, that's what that Mr. Cohen said at the time, he had a technician with him. And
It's only-
the best speed is 700 to 800,
Yes.
but the
they're
cable
not-
lines cannot handle it here.
Do you know what they do handle? Is it
Well,
560?
between 4 and 500, 550 the tops.
So it's, I mean, 450 is what they used to have in the 1990s.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
And
the
that's
the
pretty
optimal
much
now
where
is
we're
7
at.
to
That's what we
800.
have.
And your split, and the best thing, I don't think I mentioned it,
780.
a year and a half ago, they were here, they were working 24/7 for about 6 weeks. Charter, they had contractors out. They put in all new amplifier boxes, they put in all new nodes. They put in, at your house, the new little, you know, the link before it goes from the house, that they put a new chip in, that's how I found out. I talked to the technicians, oh, you're gonna lose your cable for about 10 minutes, I gotta replace the chip in the feeder box. And he says, this company spent $15 to $20 million in the last spending in this time frame. They were there about 6 weeks. He said, but the wire, he says, the worst I've ever seen in my 20 years in the business. And he's from upstate New York. He's a contractor. They worked all over New England. Not just for Charlie, he worked for Comcast, Cox. You know, he's a freelancer with cable. He said some of the worst cable he's ever seen in his 20 years.
That work wasn't all over town.
Yeah, they did the whole town. They did all the amplifiers, they did
So
all the
there's a
nodes.
compliment that
They
we,
did all the, they put new chips in the, where you connected to your house to the pole, the line, put a special chip, it was upgraded, but they didn't upgrade the cable.
They didn't upgrade the cable.
Yeah, they did upgrade the cable they put in. So he said it was a total waste of that money because they got the equipment at the head-end station doing, giving the output, but the cable cannot handle the output. Just like when you go to fiber, you go almost to a terabyte.
What was upgraded?
The amplifiers, the nodes, and they put new chips in the tap box that feeds your house.
so who benefited? Every person who has?
Everybody, they did the whole town.
Somehow we haven't heard people talking about that, so
So
it was
nobody
very.
knew about it. How I found
very
out is
quietly
when the
done.
guy, the technician, I was home, he said, you can lose your cable for about 10 minutes, I can do that work, and I started talking to him. See, I said, they're doing this all over town, they're working 24/7, they've got charter people, they've got private contractors. and they spent at least 6 weeks here, 24/7, but they did most of the work between midnight and 6 in the morning. That way people weren't affected by,
I mean, this is,
you know, they weren't, it's the same,
Don.
people were not watching TV at that time of morning.
this is a fantastic way for our attorney to begin the conversation. Thank you for all that you've done.
So far.
Yeah, that's a good
So
beginning.
far.
That's a good, really
So
good
far.
beginning, yeah.
But I do think I agree with you in terms of us as the Cable Advisory Committee participating in the virtual meetings with them. I think it's to our benefit to
That'd be great.
strengthen numbers, and I will make myself available for that. I don't know if everybody else can, but as long as we have a little bit of notice and we
Sure.
know,
Sure.
you know.
I mean, we can pick dates and I'll,
Yeah.
you know, let John know and find out when he can be available.
Can we ask them, okay, the FCC requires them once a year, do you know what RF leakage is? Do you know what RF leakage is on cable lines?
Do I know what?
Yeah, it's a radio frequency, that if the cable is bad, it has leakage, it goes out, the signal loses out to the air. By FCC regulation, they have to do that once a year through the whole town. Check it for RF leakage. That's the federal FCC regulation.
Signal.
Signal
yeah.
loss.
All right, signal
Yeah,
loss.
it's a RF leakage test.
They're required to do it, so
It's
I would
required by federal law.
imagine that they do
It's
it.
on the list somewhere.
We want to know if they can give us some documentation that they've been doing it in town.
Well, we can ask.
Yeah, I can
And-
ask.
And during license renewal, they're usually pretty cooperative about that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's something that people don't know about. And I found out was funny. I had this guy about 3 years ago driving to my driveway with a van with antennas on it. He said, well, you got RF leakage going in somewhere on your line. Find out, I hadn't seen this guy in 40 years. He was in Vietnam with me. It's funny how you meet, say, hey, he lived in Worcester, he went to charter. The strangest way, you meet somebody you haven't seen in 40 years. And that's how I found out about the RF leakage test, because that was his job. He went all over New England for charter doing testing. That was his job. But you find out in strange ways.
Yes, absolutely. God pays attention to a lot of small things that a lot of people pay attention to and only complain about. So that's why we're glad to have him remind us all the time. And they all did not get on that long list because we wanted the list to be manageable. Do you feel that the list is manageable?
Yes, I do. It's got, it's got a lot of, it's got more than most lists I put together for municipalities. So it shows that there's been a lot of thought about some of the technical and the more, the less obvious and less noticed issues and concerns that you have. So, I think it's an excellent list. But certainly a system upgrade is something that we ought to be asking for now. Do they have to do it? No. We might be able to shame them into do it. But what I think is likely, we will find out, is that they are planning on doing it. If they've been replacing amplifiers and other types of equipment, it may be that that's preparatory to upgrading the cable.
For us,
And about 2 years ago, they updated the heading station with all new equipment. And that was another strange one. We had two women come in. Were you there at that meeting, Steve? Two women came in from Charter. She was the vice president of New England at the time. She had taken Cohen's place. And I was talking to her before the meeting, and I said, what do you think? I went to the heading station. It's deplorable. The equipment there is so old. She said, I'll see what I can do about it. I figured that's it. She talked, you never hear from her again. 2 weeks later, there was a box truck parked out there, about 4 or 5 charter vehicles. And I went and talked to the guy. I told him, I was cable advisory, all that. He said, yeah, we got orders from up on top to replace all the equipment in the head of the station, update it to the best we can. 6 months later, she was fired. But we heard, that was the rumor. We asked about her, to contact her, and she long was employed by Charter.
when,
She was doing her job, correcting problems that,
when we hear
Listen,
complaints, we
was
don't
good.
have this kind
was
of a
good at her
response
job.
for most people, and most people's eyes would glaze over very quickly if we started talking about that. And so I think there's some balance between the complaints that we receive are very specific. And Steve could tell you that because he brings them to us, like the kind of programming we have or the kind of costs we have. But that's not gonna be a discussion that we can have, specifically. But that's why I'm hoping that what we did prepare is something that you feel we can fight for, or at least make a strong case for.
I do, and, we're not gonna get it all. We're gonna get the money, I think. I don't think that's gonna be an issue. It's the more technical things, and, I'm concerned about the ability of Charter to be able to provide us with an HD channel at all if they've got, you have to have a digital upgrade first before you can get HD. And I'm assuming we
Well, how do
don't
they
have, we
send
don't
the
have a
HD
digital.
signals on the regular cable channels? Because you're getting your HD channels on the regular, say, Fox News, NBC News, the Discovery channels, History Channel, that's all HD,
Nothing.
1080 HD.
Right, but I think if
How are they
they're,
getting that through the cable?
if their network may be maxed out, that's the whole point of
Yeah.
the bandwidth of the
They
network.
have the cable.
So they may not have the bandwidth to add
Right.
an HD channel for
Right.
local
That's the
origination.
problem.
That-
with
And
the old cable.
That all
It's
impacts,
really important that we get the accurate information,
Right,
because the town is already looking at other avenues to solve what we don't have, correct?
that's
This
another
is-
thing, the bandwidth
This is
problem.
what we're doing. We need as much background in this conversation so that the issues that David Cole is representing become clearer and clearer. There's lots of confusion about how, this moves forward, that moves forward, what do we need, and all of that.
See, that's another problem with Cole said they didn't have the bandwidth. It was about 2 years ago we saw it. And then people are streaming a lot now, and you need the bandwidth to stream, even with the internet connection. So,
Do you feel like we've discussed this enough? I don't want to beat
yeah,
this to death.
I do. I would like to offer David an opportunity to speak maybe it may parallel what we're doing, but I think it's probably good for you, Bill, to hear this other track that we're working on, and just to make sure that, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we're not, jeopardizing the license, as we see it. So do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Just briefly, in the master plan update that we did in 2021, we did a survey of residents and businesses as to their take on their internet services, and we got 550 residents. It's about 10% of the residential population, and 50-some businesses, again, about 10% of the businesses in the community. And they had a lot of criticism, as you might expect. And all that was fed into the master plan update to call for exploring alternatives that could provide alternatives for the public that would be more adequate to their needs and desires. And so that led to setting up an Internet Advisory Committee with parallel to the Cable Advisory Committee. And Renee has, at least for the past year, been on both committees, so he's been our spiritual bridge. And part of the thing that prompted this was that the town was installing a fiber network, a backbone system that serves all of the town offices and the schools, and as I discovered recently, it's into the library, it's into the Council on Aging, and those facilities are there. The main problem is most people aren't aware that they're there and haven't noticed whether they've made a difference. So we've got a big educational campaign that we have to do, but we have the backbone, and that was paid for in part by town funds and grant funds, etc. But that's part of the basic infrastructure for a fiber optic system.
now, are you planning to go through the whole town?
Yes, but
Because White's now has Open Cape, and they've got the terabyte system, White Titan with
yeah,
Open Cape.
yes, we know
Right.
that. But we also have got grant funding to extend 2 rings out across the northern part of the town from the backbone, and we're hoping to get more grant funding to do that. And eventually, the hope is to try to have a network that would, let me see if I can find the map here. Always gets lost in my papers. Here's the budget paper.
There was a drawing in
What?
it. A yellow sheet, there was a yellow sheet.
Yellow
with a
sheet,
drawing.
well, there's one that just is the northern loop. Let me get this out of there if I can. Sorry to not have it immediately available.
That's not it.
That's the northern loop. That is the first loop that's being taken off from the system over to a densely populated and business-oriented part of the town. So that, yeah, here's the proposed, we can send this around, but this is the backbone and all of the loops.
Now, have you applied for federal funds? I know at the White House and Biden is always saying the rural communities, they want them to be, way
Well,
up.
Yeah,
Has
we,
the town gone through
I
federal
think,
funds?
Don, I think that's what they're
we
doing.
did get
so-
a partial grant funding for the backbone.
Okay.
We got state grant funding, 240,000 for these first
Oh,
2
great.
loops. And so we're into doing that.
Good.
But let me just say, I support you getting the best deal you can from Charter Spectrum. And because the town deserves it, but we're trying to develop an alternative that would provide choices. And we think the alternative will be both higher speed and less obstruction, less interference, be more effective, and that it will ultimately end up being lower
You
cost.
try to, like Taunton has their internet and cable, City of Taunton has a system like that, don't they?
Who?
City of Taunton.
Taunton.
Taunton has,
Municipal
yes,
water.
yes, they do.
Yeah.
But there are now 4 towns. Fairhaven has already been leading the way on this, and we've
Right.
kind of been following our model. And then there's New Bedford is exploring it, Dartmouth is exploring it, and we are exploring it. And we're also have formed what's called a broadband coalition
Right.
of
All the towns,
all the
like a
towns,
co-op.
all the towns in Massachusetts that are engaged in this process. We've got 17 or 18 that have been participating, and we're
That's
meeting.
just
on it.
like Westport with the electric, they have that discount.
Our town voted and actually used money from the Cable Resource Fund to
This is a-
begin some of the firework.
to
But
part of
we
the
saw it
backbone.
as parallel efforts, but at some point it becomes curious about where they start to overlap and
Well,
what that means. And that's, I think, Renee's.
I think our concern is obviously what this landscape is gonna look like in 10 years.
Yeah.
What is the town gonna look like? What is cable TV gonna look like? What are internet services gonna look like? And I think, the town's been very proactive in terms of making sure at least there's infrastructure in place for the future. And I think, it's obviously a good thing for
It's
Oh,
us.
it's very
It's
impressive.
possible that it could come up in the
Yeah,
conversation.
I'm sorry, David, we interrupted you. Go ahead.
Just 2 points I'd like to make. One is we've developed this broadband coalition and we're working together. And one of the things that we're exploring is the ways in which we might collaborate here, these 4 towns, and contract for some services that would be shared across the towns, which would presumably give economies of scale, more efficiency, and hopefully lower prices. And so we're gonna have a meeting later this week to talk about that possibility. And I think that's a very promising one. The other one is that the Finance Committee was very uncomfortable with the proposal that we had on the town warrant to ask the legislators to pass legislation authorizing financial activities of this municipal light plant. And I think one of the things that has emerged just in the last few days is this notion of a public-private partnership between the town and a private contractor or organization that would take over most of the responsibility for the operations, for the raising of funds and so forth, and avoid a financial obligation on the part of the town for the installation of the facilities and so forth. So we're just beginning to talk about that too. But I see all this spreading out over the next 5 to 10 years. We've got these rings up in the north where we'll probably start. We'll extend on into other areas as we get money to do it and interest in doing it. And then we just have to see let the people choose, whether they want to stick with an improved charter system or whether they want to switch. And we're just trying to provide them that alternative. We think it will be a very beneficial alternative, but we want to give the town that option. And so
My
that's where we
question-
are.
My question is, does this in any way enter into the negotiations? It's, life happening and life happening and life
It's
happening.
the elephant in the room, but
Yes,
it's,
Yeah.
yes.
Another thing we
it's
have to,
not gonna, we're not gonna be negotiating, it's not going to affect our negotiations.
Another
What this-
thing we have
what
to
this-
worry
What
about-
this may do,
Yeah.
what it may do,
right.
is have the beneficial effect of making Charter upgrade its system to compete. And if
Another-
they upgrade their internet
Yeah.
system, they're gonna upgrade their cable plant too.
Right.
It's all the same thing. So this may have an extremely good beneficial effect in the long run on the quality of service you get out of Charter.
And your guidance on how that comes into the conversation, I think, is really important, because it's not a bomb on top of things, it's sort of a nice,
I think
gentle.
we say,
That might be a sidebar.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a sidebar.
You know,
that
When
might
we
be a
ask for a
sidebar.
system upgrade,
Right.
I mean, I think we say, and he'll probably know, of course, that the municipality is constructing its own internet system, its own broadband system, and it's gonna be state-of-the-art. And you're gonna wanna compete with that. So tell us what your plan is for upgrading the
You
cable
know, the-
system along with that. I mean, I think that's how you do it, but Renee's right, it's a sidebar.
Another thing we have to worry about is cable. A lot of the, say, NBC, CBS, they have Discovery, they have Peacock, they're all going streaming. CBS now is doing some of their programming. If you want to watch a show, you watch it streaming. They're showing it, they're cutting back on their normal programming. So maybe 5 years from now, you're not going to have cable.
I think-
That's our problem, because people will drop, our revenue is from cable only, not internet or phone.
I think
The revenue.
that technology is important to consider, but I want to speak just briefly on what I consider the heart and soul of this proposal, because we really considered this cable system critical to the town's ability to talk to each other, to hear each other, and then we incorporated that into this very dry and stern and demanding document. So Don, give us some of the softer thoughts that really is what it's all about to most of us here. Not a lot, just a little.
I will be brief. During the COVID shutdown, we would have not been able to have the government function without the cable TV system. I mean, it broadcasted meetings when we had public hearings, they were done virtually. And none of that would have been possible without having our ability, not only having the system in place, but having people trained, to have people come and actually do the programming and film us. And all of that, it's now recorded on YouTube, but it was recorded previously. So everything, there is a virtual record of every public hearing and every public meeting. The cable TV system was indispensable in running the government.
It was that way everywhere.
Yeah, and
Every
we
municipality.
want that to remain and to be an important part of why we're renegotiating.
And
We hear all the
In-
reasons
In
not.
some communities, cable subscriberships went up because of that.
I have another question.
May have happened here.
Say Charter loses 50% of the people subscribing to cable. Do they still have to provide it? Are they locked into that 10-year contract where, say half the people disappear, just go streaming and internet? You know what I mean?
They're locked into a 10-year contract.
Tell you like,
yes.
they, even though they're losing, say they lose 50% of the people in 5-6 years from now, wherever they're streaming, if it's high tech, they upgraded their system, everybody gets good high-speed internet, they're still locked into that contract no matter what.
They are locked into a 10-year contract,
That's the
contractual
upside.
obligation. By the way, Verizon has put an escape clause in its licenses over the past 4 or 5 years. It says we can give you notice of unilateral termination after 3 years. And they've also only negotiated 5-year licenses because they can't see beyond 5 years. Most of us can't either. Most of us can't see beyond 2 years. So the mere fact that Charter and other cable companies had not picked up on that tells me that they are not contemplating getting out of the cable business in the short or medium term. What could happen is, if business is really bad for Charter, they could transfer their license to somebody else. And there's a procedure we go through. There's a hearing before the board, and if it looks like the successor is legally and financially capable of standing in the Charter shoes, then you'd approve the transfer. But the license would continue to exist, and the provision of cable services to residents would continue to exist.
So if they say they went bankrupt, they'd have to set up another provider?
No, if they go bankrupt, all bets are off.
That's all, that's it, okay.
All bets are off.
We're
That's all right.
getting too far downstream. I want to ask if there's any significant questions. I think you've done a super job of getting us prepared for this. And thanks, David, so much, because I think we need to keep making that conversation flow. Are there any other questions that have been missed or ignored? Steve, do you have anything you want to?
On the, when we talked about the discount, when you glossed through the list, you don't think the senior is gonna happen, but does any community have any kind of discount? Low income, veterans, anything out there?
Not from Charter anymore. They have it in their current licenses, but as those licenses expire, Charter's not doing it anymore.
Okay.
The only, there's a lot of communities that ask for veterans or disabled, folks who are disabled and other forms of discounts. The only discount you get from any of them is a senior discount, and it's means tested, and it's 10% of basic service. So it's a couple, $3 or $4 a month, something like that. It's not much, but that's what you get. And you don't even get it in the license. You get a side letter agreement that is, we'll provide it as long as we feel like it, basically. So,
That's what they did last time. We had it for a few
Yeah.
years and then it disappeared.
yeah, so
But
it's,
I was told by Jim Quinn that the veterans, we have a director of Veterans Affairs, had much more information, so I'll follow up on that and have her provide us with that.
I would be willing to bet that what Charter will say will be, we won't put it in the license, but we're not gonna stop it for the folks that have it now.
Could I just mention one more point? One of the things that we've insisted on in the planning for this and building into the pricing structure is that there would be a monthly fee for the kinds of funds that come in through this cable advisory committee from the Charter contract. And so this would be a fee that would be set, we're talking about $4 a month or so
From customers.
for each customer, and that it
On
could
the
be.
municipal plan, on the municipal
This,
Correct, yeah.
Yes, on this high-speed internet
Yeah.
system, that all customers that, they initially didn't include that in the fee structure. They had the cost of the equipment, the cost of the services and so forth, and I've insisted all along that we have this fixed fee for supporting the activities that are so important that have developed out of that part of this contract. So I think we'll have that. I think it would amount to more than what is currently coming from the Charter contract. I haven't been totally clear as to what the amounts are, and we don't know from our side what it would be because we don't know how many subscribers we'll have.
Well, that's why I'm very
Is that you had
happy. We
a,
have an attorney working on what we've established as what we want, because we will know, yes, no, maybe.
did you have like 3 breakdowns, like 3 different things? I remember reading on your thing, part of it was online. You had like 3, like $57 or something, what was that?
Well, there's on the master plan.
Master plan, yeah,
Yeah, it's broken down for paying for the capital
right.
equipment, paying for the
Right,
maintenance and paying for, I think it's a
right,
service fee, and paying for a monthly charge for supporting the town programs that are connected to the
Right.
cable operations, for John and
right,
Valerie,
right.
all that stuff. So,
And I think
and I
that's,
just want to say that I think that the Channel 190 last night reached its peak of programming. The
Irene was
We-
two-hour
We've
session,
had 2 comments tonight, so we're sort of not gonna go
have
over
you
the
seen
time.
that?
Yeah, I saw a Westmore Voice show last night.
yeah,
You know, that was just so damn good.
Good.
It was well timed. We had an
It
hour
was
of
perfect,
chit chat
and, yeah.
before the election.
Oh.
sounds like the viewership was through the roof.
Fantastic.
That's
But
great.
anyway, thank you all. I would, unless there's some
You wanna
urgent
speak?
question, you know, I like to keep a meeting under an hour, and you drove a lot longer than that to get here, so we don't have to all leave, but,
No questions from the crowd?
Did you give him copies of the results of the surveys?
I will
no,
provide
but,
that
you
to
know,
you.
we can email
I
all
will
that.
send it.
I've got
Madam-
it.
You
Madam
can, you can
Chairman,
hand it
yeah.
over.
I can just give it to him right here.
I move that we
This-
close the public hearing.
There a second? I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Your input has been very important to our deliberations, and we appreciate it.
Could we select perhaps 3 or 4 potential dates for negotiating with?
What would you
with-
think the earliest might be? Once you get
Sometime
your
next week?
letter out.
Or if that's, I'm not sure what your schedule is about FinCom and town meetings and the kinds of things that we
May
see building
2nd
up.
is our town meeting.
Okay.
Steve's the selectman, so Monday's out. Now
Yeah,
that
well,
he's
I've got a
re-up.
bunch, I'm on a bunch of committees, but, you know, just shoot some dates out there. If you're gonna do it remotely, I can do it anyway, so.
Okay.
Late, are we talking maybe late afternoon, something like 4 or?
Whatever is convenient for you folks.
That would probably work
I do
best
them
for
from
you.
8:30 in the morning until like 8 at night.
I have a lot of flexibility, but also meetings, so I think for people that are.
I got flexibility.
Your schedule allow you to meet
Usually,
anytime, or?
usually afternoons are
When
better.
you're
for-
retired, you
late
have all the time in the
afternoons are
world.
better for me, but-
Well,
So-
I think because you're dealing with one person, why don't you get 3 dates from him? And then we can see what works best, because
Okay.
with
Um,
all of us having different dates, give us,
it-
over the next, 2 weeks?
Yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever works.
I'm going to make a friendly suggestion of either next Tuesday, the 18th, or the 20th. If he asks me what dates we would like, I can give him those dates. If those are free for everybody,
Tuesday, the
Tuesday
18th, or
and
the
Thursday, the
20th.
20th, they're
Both of
completely empty on my calendar, so
The
we could
18th,
do.
I believe we have selected.
That's a
Because it's the day
Tuesday.
after the holiday,
It's the day after the holiday,
Yeah.
and we have the planning board in the evening.
so.
So maybe Tuesday, Thursday, the 20th?
Tuesday's not good.
Yeah.
Tuesdays are not good.
Yeah, so Thursday, what are you thinking, afternoon, 4 o'clock?
I'm not sure I put everything.
Between 4 and 5, sometime?
Yeah, or whatever
Yeah.
time is convenient.
That
Yeah,
sounds
anytime
good.
between 4 and 5.
April 20. So 4 o'clock or later. And then if he wants to go into the following week, I can do that. I've got the 25th and the 26th off. That is empty.
What days of the week is that?
It's 26th is Tuesday.
26th is Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Sorry, 25th is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you have that Tuesday off?
Tuesday's not good, I think, for
Okay.
Don, right?
So maybe we ought to try to stick to Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So that's the 26th,
Um,
yeah. I want to get started.
Thursday, the 20th or
I look tired.
26th?
Thursday's the
He's still on the
26th.
other side of the world?
No,
We started
Thursday,
at 5:30.
I'm
is
sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. Thursday is
27th.
the 27th.
Yep. Yep.
no,
So I'm not available that
I
day
got
'cause
through
I'm
that.
traveling.
Just,
Okay.
My
we-
calendar
How long have you been back?
Thursday is the 20th.
we get back
Wednesday's the
Wednesday
Correct.
afternoon.
Oh,
correct,
So that's-
yeah.
So it's been.
20
So we-
to
So are we
26.
saying
Well, you
Wednesday
should
or
be out.
Thursday?
It'd have to be Wednesday, the
Sue's
26th.
already on the
Yeah,
plane.
that's
Traveling
fine
on
for me.
Visiting your brother in Houston,
So-
Yeah, I heard.
Thursday,
that.
April 20, or Wednesday, the 26th,
Well,
or whatever other date he
Good travel.
suggests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
if
throw some
he,
dates.
if he chooses a date, just let
Yeah.
us know and
Okay.
we'll make
Yeah,
it work.
And he wants to add another day because, well, you know, those are busy or something, we'll work with what we
And
have.
what I like
And
to
there'll
do-
be- There'll be, I would think, 3, Bob, you're gonna be able to join us maybe, right? You can join this conversation, or, You still,
If I
Commuting,
if I
yeah.
can, I will.
okay,
Okay,
great,
good. It'll be by Zoom,
Yeah.
and,
yeah.
okay. And what I like to do with John, if I can, is, have a habit of meeting once a week. Convene, have our discussion, say, all right, we'll see you next week. That way, we ought to be able to get it done by June 6th.
Yeah, keep
Yes,
them
sir.
in.
It's middle April now.
Yeah.
Are you gonna set up the Zoom code and all that?
Yep.
Pardon me?
Are you gonna set up the Zoom site? Who's gonna set up?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll send us
Okay.
a link.
You'll email us the,
Do you want me
Well,
to, from my office?
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
easier, so.
Okay,
Oh, either that or I can do it. I can
Okay.
do it. If you let me know the dates, I'll take care of that.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
That's one less thing you gotta worry about.
okay.
And I think it's, like you said, it's a good idea if you get them to commit to
You
once
have
a
to,
week,
yeah.
a date, and
You
I think
have to,
we'll all try to jump in.
yeah.
Sounds good.
now,
Good.
is this considered a public open meeting, or you have to have it recorded?
No, this is a
You
negotiation.
negotiate, okay, so it's not a,
See, we don't have to make this public. This is,
If it's a quorum, we do. We need to say we're meeting in Zoom. That's about it. I don't know, ask Jim Hartnett, because that should be
I will.
executive or negotiating, right? Bill, is that gonna be negotiation, so it'll be executive, or is that?
No, it's not, there's
Oh, so we'll have to
there's
post
no, it's gotta be open meeting.
So it'll be
There's
open,
no
okay.
exception.
so we knew.
So you have to post it
We
as
have
a
to post it,
quorum.
okay.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do also is, I've got to work on the draft. I want to get him a draft license that we're proposing with all our stuff in it. I'll send that to him and send it to you too. It is a standard charter license, but you'll want to take a look at it, and if you have comments and you see things in there you might want to add or adjust or something like that, that's all legitimate. But I want to try and get something to him before next week. So when we sit down with him, we've got this draft license in front of us, and if he doesn't like this, he can cross it out, and if we don't like that, we can cross that out. But it's a fairly standard document, and it's one that he's accepted in a number of other municipalities. So I'll crank our numbers and our things into it and send it to him. But you won't have seen it before I send it to you, so.
That sounds good. You'll have to loop the town
Yeah.
administrator in at that point too, if you're getting down to the nitty gritty. Just CC him so he knows, and selectmen know.
He's got nothing
Yeah,
else.
I'll
Renee,
forward
make
you
sure
this
you-
information.
Okay, so I'll send it to you, Renee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Renee can forward it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you
So-
still need to take an official vote to close this out.
Yeah, I think we got a motion and we got a second,
yeah.
and we're all in favor.
uh,
Aye.
Thank you very much.